everyone, Liam J. Cross here, owner of Liam J. Cross Writing and Editing, and welcome back to Let's Talk Writing. Now, in today's episode, we're going to talk about the opening chapter. Now, I'm going to give you 3 things that you should think about when writing the opening to your novel. So let's go. Now, the first thing is your protagonist. The opening chapter, for me at least, unless it's a prologue, should always introduce your protagonist. Now, I know that sounds logical, but that leads us into step 2. But first I want to talk about why you need to introduce your your main character, from a little more of a detailed point of view. And I think it's a lot to do with sort of the subconscious mind of your reader. Now, one of my huge philosophies as an editor is that you can do so much in your work by channeling the subconscious of your reader. And that sounds like, it probably sounds a little bit weird and like a little bit like we're trying to do like some sort of psychic thing rather than write a good book. But let me explain it a little deeper. If you introduce your protagonist in the opening chapter, obviously there's nothing ever in there that says this is the book's main character. But if you introduce them in the right sort of way, which I'm going to talk about in point 2, the reader will know that that is the main character just by the way they're introduced, just by the way you describe them, just by the way they speak, just by the things that happen to them in the opening chapter. And the reader won't even know that until they get like halfway through and think, oh, so that's why. Also, that's what happened in that first chapter when the character did this. So really think about how and why you are introducing your opening chapter in that sort of way, and why you are introducing your main character in that sort of way, because that has a big impact on how the rest of the novel plays out. And like I said, that leads directly into point 2, which is you must introduce your main character's internal and external objects of desire. The external's easier to do because that's something that's black and white. The internal will develop as the narrative progresses, but I think it can be useful to try and maybe hint at the at the internal conflict, sorry. Now, this is hard to do because you don't want to feel like your first chapter is absolutely crammed with information, because that can be quite overwhelming as a reader. If you come across a first chapter that maybe goes a little too much into detail, that can actually turn you off because you feel as though stuff's happening too fast, the pacing's off, and it just distracts you a little bit. So what you need to think about in terms of introducing the internal and external objects of desire is doing so in a subtle way. And like I said, this attacks the reader's subconscious mind, like I talked about in point 1, rather than them just snapping their fingers and going, oh, okay, this is their blah, blah, blah. This is what they want, this is what they need. It's different to that. What's going to happen is if you introduce those things in the first chapter in a clever way, the reader will get to the later stages in the book when those objects of desire are confirmed, and they will then think, that was clever. They alluded to this in chapter 1. And that's what you need to think about. Think about your character's external wants, which is the main thing that they must achieve in this book, i.e. the conflict. And think about their internal needs. This is sort of heading more towards literary fiction, where the character maybe has to overcome some sort of deep-rooted internal issue through the progression of this narrative. And that is what the internal object of desire is. It's this emotional thing that through overcoming the external conflict, the character will get over at the same time. And point number 3 is about not the protagonist, but the antagonist. If you can work in a way to sort of, again, subtly introduce your novel's antagonist, or maybe not even subtly, just in a way that doesn't point them out as the antagonist right off the bat, that always plays out as a clever clever part of the story, because the reader, if they're introduced to the antagonist from the get, they will then, again, as it gets to the later points of the novel, when the antagonist is fully established, they will look back and think, that clever person, they had me going there. I didn't think this person was going to be the antagonist, and then all of a sudden they come out doing all this bad stuff. And I think as a reader, that's the stuff that excites you. Like if you read that at the end of a chapter and figure out that one of the main character's friends is actually the person standing in their way, you then sort of read on with much more inspiration. You're like, oh my god, I need to know what happens next. I need to know why, how, where, and you just feel like you really need to know these details. So I think introducing the antagonist, especially if that person doesn't seem like it initially, is a great strategy to employ in your opening chapter. Now I hope that video has given you something to think about, because that is my aim with these videos. I want to help writers in any way, shape or form. So I hope that has helped you and given you something to think about when you next craft the opening chapter of your next project. That is all for today's episode of Let's Talk Writing, and I hope to see you in the next one for some more writing talk.